Hey everyone, it is late at night and I am Norman. Tonight we're going to be looking at a watch that just recently arrived. And this is going to be an interesting review for two reasons. Number one, I'm actually not a huge fan of this brand, and I'll explain further when we dive into it. But number two, this watch is actually not going to get very much wrist time. And the reason it's not is actually pretty exciting. So be sure to stick around until the end of this review and I will reveal to you exactly why. So let's flip the camera around and take a look at this watch. Okay, so here's the box that it arrived in, and I think that font is just about perfect for this watch. Slide this off. A lot of times boxes will flip open in the front so you can actually get them out easier. This one is not the case. So you have to kind of tip it upside down to get to it. The inner box. I actually haven't opened this, but it's pretty thick. Let's see what's inside here. Warranty card. And this is what I'm curious about. This is a two-hander super minimalist watch, so I'm not sure what is in this booklet. I mean, that pretty much sums up the instructions right there. Okay. Different languages. And there is the watch. What's interesting is it arrives on a pillow that you cannot fit the watch on. This thing is huge, and you can't really even close it on there. Okay. And here it is, the Movado Museum. And look at how absolutely minimal that is. Now what's cool about this lineup of watches is my understanding is one of them is on permanent display at MoMA, the Museum of Modern Art, hence the name of the watch. But if you look at the other designs that Movado puts out, they're, how should I say, painful. Here's a couple examples. Nope. No. Absolutely not. So terrible. And this brand and these watches really don't get a whole lot of consideration from the watch nerd community. And I mean, it makes sense. I mean, this is pretty much just a fashion watch. But for some reason, I've been intrigued by the museum for quite a while. So I finally decided I would just have to break down and get one and experience it in person. And there is a mystique to this watch. I think it might just be the sheer minimalism of it. I'm not sure. But it is intriguing and does call you to wear it. So let's start by looking at the strap. And I actually really love this strap. This is the first lizard grain strap that I've seen that isn't really highly polished. It's almost kind of matte finish, which makes it look kind of dark and creepy. I love it. And one thing I have to say is the museum watches have such great buckles. Look at that, it's all Art Deco, and the dot there is such a great nod to the design itself. The only beef I have with this strap is it is so long. On my 7-inch wrist, it wraps almost all the way around to the other lug. That is just kind of a pain. Speaking of lugs, it has very Bauhaus-like lugs. They jut straight out of the case, and they're just kind of square. They do round down a little bit there, but they definitely remind me of a Bauhaus watch. In fact, this whole case is very Bauhaus-y. It's kind of a cylinder case with a very, very small bezel on it. Which means, even though it's 39 millimeters, it wears much larger, especially with that flat crystal on there, and its thin case height. But it's actually not terribly painful. And looking at the crown, There are some surprisingly cool details to this watch. I mean, look at that. That indent, another nod to the iconic 12 o'clock dot. That is so cool. I love how they tie in their own design elements throughout the watch. Looking at the case back, we see that it is mirror finish. Look at how shiny that is. It's Swiss quartz. We have the serial number. It notes that it's water resistant. Basically just dress watch water resistant. And this one has a sapphire crystal. Being a quartz movement, you're not going to use the crown very much. But let's see what it's like setting the time on this. It's a pretty tight crown there. And the hands move very nicely. Let's get this around here. Pop it back in. Looking at the dial, I love the handset because I am a sucker for Delphine hands, and these are so great. I have to apologize for the reflection because this dial is a mirrored dial. It's black and completely mirror finish, which really enhances the dark look of it, which is pretty cool. Plus you get some cool reflections of the 12 o'clock dot. I love how these have kind of an Egyptian vibe to them. I think that was what first got me intrigued with them, because I do love me some Egyptian imagery. Down at the bottom, we have Swiss quartz, Movado, and that's it. That text and the dot, that is all you get. So with a piece this minimal, what is it like telling the time on it? Well, it's easier to set this watch than it is to tell the time on it, that's for sure. So when I'm setting the time, I just use the hour hand. So right there, we know that it's 12 o'clock. We know this is 1. So if I'm going for a time like 2 o'clock, where the hour hand is really in the middle of nowhere, it's still pretty easy to get the right hour. And then for the minutes, I'll kind of use 15 and then just guesstimate in there. But telling the time is basically just a guesstimate also. So this is not Thule. This is definitely fashion watch-ish. But it looks really cool. It's nice and thin. It's a flat sapphire crystal. That's really cool that they went with sapphire on this. As for the specifications on this watch, this is a Movado Museum 2100002. The model year is 2018. The case size is 39 millimeters. The lug width is 20 millimeters. The case height is 8 millimeters. It has a sapphire crystal, as I mentioned, and the movement inside this thing is an absolute mystery. It is a Swiss quartz movement, but that is all I've been able to find online. Every listing I've seen for this simply says that the movement is quartz. It has a water resistance of 30 meters. So let me take the Dolce Vita off, and I'll put this on and show you what it looks like on the wrist. Here is the Movado Museum on my 7-inch wrist. And like I said, it looks really cool. Look at that strap. I have to wear it on the tightest hole there, because I love this buckle so much. I haven't done any micro adjustment by swapping that out. So it's a little snug on my wrist. It's kind of in between, but this goes all the way around. I have to position that keeper way over here. Terrible, but that looks really cool. It's actually pretty fun to glance down and see absolute minimalism sitting on your wrist. So the burning question, why is this not going to get very much wrist time? I'll show you why. As soon as this watch arrived and I realized that I actually do love the Movado Museum, I got on eBay and I found a vintage 36 millimeter one. So now I have the beauty of the Movado Museum at a vintage size. This watch definitely does have some issues, namely scratches all over this crystal. As you can see when I get that angle just right, It looks like someone was walking a little bit too close to a cement wall. But I plan on buffing those out. I've already tried a little bit, but I think I'm going to have to put it on my big buffer wheel, not my cheap fake Dremel tool. I feel this aesthetic kind of requires a pristine crystal. What's also interesting is you can see that it has kind of a starburst dial, which I feel like the black mirrored one works a lot better. This one kind of gives the impression that there's smudges on the crystal when I glance down, but that's fine because this watch is super cool. And it has the buckle I love, and the strap is much more tame. So this watch is the Movado 87-E4-0863. And apparently it's actually not that vintage. At least the listing that I found says 2018. I thought that it was more like the 1980s or 90s. I'll do some more research and find out for sure. But this crystal is mineral, so I'll be buffing that out as best I can. And if I can't, I'll see if TikTok Watch Repair will fix that up for me. The case size is 35 millimeters, the lug width is 18 millimeters, and the movement inside is an ETA 902.002. And when this is new, it has a water resistance of 30 meters. This piece is super cool. Look at the crown guards. And it has a much sleeker case, a larger bezel, which kind of makes it look even smaller than it is, but this has gotten quite a bit of wrist time. And that is why the other one is destined to live out its days sitting on a shelf, most likely. There's no point in trying to sell it because they have terrible resale value. I would maybe break even though I got a pretty good deal. They sell for just over $100 from what I've seen. So there you have it, the Movado Museum 39mm quartz watch. And this is actually a really brilliant watch. If you have larger wrists or prefer watches in a nice modern size, this may be perfect for you if you like extreme minimalism. Thanks for watching.